So that's what bothers me about the recording of history. I mean, I think what happens matters, reality matters. And if you find that sort of everything that happens, not just 80 years ago in Dresden, but things that are happening in like LA County 20 years ago, if they just disappear, in some cases you can't even find them on Google. Like that's a level of manipulation that's just mind control. That's really scary and dangerous.
And I think the propagandists throughout the 20th century, ever since the sort of the rise of mass media, have really understood that that's exactly what it is, especially once it goes on for a generation or two and kids are raised up and this is what they're being taught, because it forms for them their not just their view of the world, but their view of themselves, like our identities as individuals and our identities that we attach ourselves to collectively are all a result of the stories we tell ourselves and that we hear as we're growing up. And so if you change those stories, all of those things change as well.
Okay, so that's a perfect segue to something I'm just itching to talk to you about, itching to get your view on. And that leads us back to Churchill. So Churchill's this great hero, defender of the West, savior of the West, the toughest man in world history, the only reason we're not speaking German. And he won the Second World War. Like that's what, ask anybody, that's just a fact. And yet if I go to his country like regularly, and it's, it doesn't really even exist in any recognized way. It's totally degraded. I try not to go there because it's so depressing. It's just so sad. It's so broken. It's not the country of victors. It's a completely defeated country that's subsequently been invaded. And so how did that happen? I go to Japan and it's full of self-respect and order and cleanliness and it doesn't look like it lost. It's like, what is that?
Well, I think we ran an experiment that tells us pretty well what that is. And we didn't know we were running the experiment at the time, but you had the Iron Curtain set up and all the countries behind it that were not exposed to incessant American world order Western propaganda for 70 years, they don't have these same problems. You go to Hungary, even a place like Poland, which obviously the leadership class of any of these countries is, you always have to be suspicious of them because, they
even Romania, which as you said, suffered more than most countries.
Yeah. And so, but those countries, they don't mind. And again, the tippy-top leadership class might be one thing, somebody went to the London School of Economics or something, but
taking NATO money. Yeah.
The people have no problem saying, no, this is a country, this is Hungary. This is a country for Hungarians. This is a Christian country. This is our country. They don't have a problem saying that. That is not something that anybody west of the Iron Curtain, for the most part, is comfortable. It's loosening up a little bit, thank God. But the question is whether it's loosening up too late. You go to a place like Britain, go to a place like Germany. I mean, there's no country on planet Earth that has been subjected to a more pervasive and destructive psychological warfare campaign than Germany over the course of the Cold War. I mean, these people have you really hope that it's not the case, but you wonder if there's even the material that would be necessary to construct a psychological defense of their nation and their people. And the lesson that we took from World War II, and again, this wouldn't have been the lesson that any of our soldiers who stormed the beaches in Normandy would have taken or anything like that, but the official kind of court history lesson is that when Europeans start thinking in terms of group, they're very dangerous. And that process needs to be subverted. It needs to be eventually eliminated, like the possibility for that to happen again.
But just Europeans, not Asians or Africans?
Well, I think, there's a lot of elements to that. I mean, part of it is the people that were victimized during the Second World War were not victimized by Africans. People were, obviously Chinese people were victimized by the Japanese, but it's a different, China's got a very powerful immune system that kind of preserves them as a culture.
So does Japan.
And so does Japan. And so that's, there's a little bit different.
But from a Western perspective, I think it's fair to say, or our leaders make the case implicitly, that it's really only when Europeans have a sense of themselves as Europeans that the world is in peril, but everyone else is fine to do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's they don't see those other people as a threat. Either because the people who formulate these narratives don't live in those places, or they don't have historical experience with those people, and so they don't see them as the same kind of threat.
So Germany is like a totally self-hating place. It's a husk.
Yeah.
It's depressing as hell, though also wonderful in a way, but it's going away. But they lost. At least you could say they lost 2 world wars in a row.
Yeah.
Britain won 2 world wars in a row. And if anything, it's more degraded than Germany. So like, just to take it back to the first thing I said, and I'll shut up and let you answer, but if Churchill is a hero, how come there are British girls begging for drugs on the street of London? And the place is, it's just London is not majority English now. Like, what?
Well, the people who formulated the version of history that considers Churchill a hero, they like London the way it is now, But
that's not victory. That's like the worst kind of defeat, is it not? I'm just confused.
If you're an English person who cares about England, then yeah, absolutely it is. I mean, it's forget about victory and defeat. It's the worst thing that can happen. If you look at what's going on over lately in England, where you're having riots, you're having these, sort of budding violent confrontations between nationalists and the police and so forth, which, I think our natural, we like order, right?
Yeah.
Like Europeans, we like order, and we see things like that, and we have a natural aversion to disorder, to street violence.
Yes, for sure.
That. We might be, war might be necessary, but disorderly mob violence, things like that, like immediately make us kind of take a step back, because most of our experience with those things is really bad. And at the end of the day, like, it is an unleashing of evil spirits, no matter what the cause or the reason is. And yet when I look over there at what the British people, some of them, are trying to do, I refuse to judge them for doing whatever it is that they feel they have to do, as their homeland, their ancient homeland, is being taken from them.